everyone, thanks for popping by. If you're a regular, well, I thank you so much for the continued support. And if you're new and you're not a regular, don't forget to hit that subscribe and the bell notification so you'll be notified of my new videos. On the bench today, as you can see, we have this behemoth. And the reason he's on the bench today is I broke him. A couple of Super Baja Ray videos ago, I took this beast out to a BMX park. And yeah, well, now I've got to replace a little bit of the front cage. And I'm going to redo the diff while I'm in there because I've got to replace the diff housing in the front. A little while back, I pulled the screws right out of the top mounting point. So there's no actual threads. I put epoxy, 5-minute epoxy around the threads of my screws, and then I screwed them in there as best I could, and that's been holding. But I figured since I've got to wait for the cage, I might as well order this while I'm at it because I've got to wait for delivery. Anyways, they're both here now. Let's get into this thing. Any job on this truck involves 20 screws to remove this body. And you can thank me later. I've already done that work for you. All right, so I won't put you through that. I've got my own sort of system rigged up so that this can't come up. It's broken. This front cage piece here. There used to be arms that connected here to these screws here on both sides, and they've both snapped off. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna remove all these little cap things here that the body mounts to, and cut off my homemade fix job here. Cut these little guys too so the wire can be free. These screws I just unbuckled until it came loose here on either side, so those stay there, so I don't need to worry about remembering where they go. So this piece out to take the front bumper assembly away. It's 2 bolts here, and there's also going to be 2 of the bolts that go through the bulkhead on the bottom here, which are flat bolts. Okay, 2 top ones we need to get at and get. There we go. There we go. This comes away quite easily. So I want to attack the shock towers, which means we're going to remove the shocks. All right, now once you take the shock off, remember there's that little plastic bushing in each one at the top. It's going to come out, and you want to make sure you save it. All right, let's get that shock tower off. This part for me is a little difficult because the threads that hold the shock towers on are epoxied in. I'm getting some turning action, so that's a good sign. Turning without any snapping of screw heads is always a good sign. Look at that. This is all epoxy. Even the head has got a big thing of epoxy around it. But you know something? It wasn't a bad idea because it did its job. You ever strip your threads out? Put a 5-minute epoxy around the screw and then screw them back in there and let it dry for a good 12 hours. And it should hold in place. I mean, it did for me anyway. It should pop off here. Yeah, we'll just pull this out. Yeah, just like that. There we go. Get rid of these screws here. And when I mean get rid of, I mean just simply take out. Let's flip it over. We want to start removing the screws back here for this top plate. I removed this one, not the center one because it's actually not holding the top brace down, it's holding something on the top brace underneath. And then these 2 back here I got out. Yeah. We're gonna attack the E-clips. Yes, I know, E-clips. I'm gonna pull those off, take this brace off. It should allow me to slide the pins out from behind. Apparently I stand corrected. These are in fact C-clips. This little brace should come off now. There we go. This is not as difficult as I'm making it look. There we go. When you don't have to keep your work in front of a camera, it's a lot easier. So don't be discouraged by my huffing and puffing here. That's a grub screw pin. So I guess I'll just take the shaft off. And why does that not want to come out? There we go. The shaft back together. All right. we're getting there. Back on the bench, let's get this puppy taken apart. Start by taking this brace off here. The rear brace. And set that off to the side. Drive shaft receiver off. Pin that goes right through like the others. Make sure you got the blue Loctite handy for putting this back on. If you're doing this job. Oh boy. Finally got that off. I don't know if you can see that very well. There's 3 screws, 2 in the top here, 1 in the bottom here. We should have this thing open in moments. There we go. There we go. It's time for the big reveal. There we go. Not a heck of a lot of grease in there, but it doesn't look like it's overworn or anything. It should just, there we go. It's very well seated. Losi precision, baby. Alright, so these are in place. Wipe down. You gotta take out these 4 screws. We got the 4 screws out. Let's see. Ooh. Look at that. That is nasty. Like there's hardly any fluid in there, and what's left is like black gunk. Let's clean this up. Be careful when you're cleaning it not to damage the gasket. Now when I took this out, there are these little spacers, shims, whatever you want to call them, that you got holes in them, and they're basically meant to move the fluid around in behind the gear. The way you reassemble it is there's 2 of each. There's 2 of these washers and then 2 of these sort of ninja star looking things. First thing that goes on is one of the round ones. Then a ninja star, then the second round one, then the second ninja star-like thing. There's also a little orange O-ring. Don't damage the O-ring, otherwise I'll probably have to buy a bag of 10 of them to replace it. So we've got everything cleaned up here. Now you can see I put my gear back in the diff cup. Those weird-looking washers, just like this side. So first it's the circular one, then the ninja star, then another circular one, then the other ninja star. The shape of them actually coincide with the inside shape of the cup there. You have to make sure that they're lined up so that they go in the right place when you close this up. So we've got everything cleaned, all of our spider gears and whatnot. So we're gonna put 1 gear on this end, 1 gear on this end. One of these shims, H things with the holes in it. I don't know the official term for it, but your H shims, your diff shims are on the ends there. So you see the shape, you know the shaft, and the H is going here. Should sit all the way down. And you want the flat part of that shaft up so that when this one goes in, the flat part will be down, and those shafts will lock each other in. Same way, you take the shaft, take your gears, put them on the ends of the shaft, take your H shims, your diff shims, whatever the heck you want to call them. They're shaped like H's. That's when you just drop them in there. Now when I turn this thing on the outside of the cup, you see all of those gears spinning. Once those are all in place, let's put the fluid in. Fill this puppy up. I'm going up to 50K. Stock weight oil was 30K, so that's good for now. Fill mostly and start giving it a turn. Now that I've given it a turn, I can put a lot more in there, so we're gonna keep going. Bubbles coming up. Like doing shocks, I would say leave these open and let the bubbles come up. I'm gonna leave that for a little bit, and then I'll top it up, and then I'll seal it up. Okay, I think we're good. Definitely better than it was. Make sure that everything lines up so the corners of those ninja star things will line up with the corners of where the holes are for the screws that hold it together. Down she comes. And there she is, all back together. I cannot turn it with my fingers here. This is what we want, because I don't want it to be able to transfer everything to one wheel so easily. I want it to be able to resist it a bit. So that is going to do. I'm gonna get it back in the new housing. It only goes back in one way because of this little tab in here. Installed the diff with my pinion on the shaft there. Made sure it was all nice and greasy. I'm using John Deere, basically tractor grease. That's all nice and greased up. And we're gonna just put these two ends together. Gotta put this back on as well. I just wanted to mention for the little grub screw pin, blue Loctite. Yeah, and don't forget to put rear pin guide. I just want to let you know that you actually don't have to remove the C-clips from these. I could have just simply pulled these out the front when I was disassembling this. Now you can know better. We're going to install the new housing. Entertained by my daughter's lovely singing. Oh, also make sure the drive shaft is in the transmission cup, because otherwise trying to get it in there afterwards will be a pain. Boom. Okay, so we've got the front pins in and the brace is on and everything is almost back together. We've got the drive shafts back in with our blue thread lock and our grub pins. Now I had a problem with this top plate. Something to do with the steering, I think. It's not sitting properly. And way down there, there's like a bearing that's fallen out from somewhere. It has to do with this screw here and these things. This holds the steering in place. And it all has to line up. So I have to take it all apart to get it to line up properly. With the work of Video Magic, you won't have to sit through that. So for anyone doing this job, I hope you watch this all the way through before you start it. Remember when I said you don't have to take that one out? Well, you should, because that will allow this to drop out and keep all of that stuff aligned properly. I got my pins back in here. Pins just slide in and they slide out and they're held in by the bumper assembly. Shock tower is going to go on. I'm going to replace some of this hardware because the bolts that came out of here, the holes that are closer to the front, they were quite warped. I'm going to replace them with some new button head 4M, and I believe these are about 20 millimeters long. Shock mount is on. Let's mount the upper control arms.
You know, the same with me. I have with my
And a little bit more, and there we go. Little shock bushings in the ends there. Now let's put that bumper assembly back on. It should just slide in here. All right, so the front bumper assembly is now back on. I can now replace that front section of roll cage. The new cage is on. There's my new connection points down here that were not there on the old one anymore. And here's our little finishing touches. Put these little things back. Oh no, are they really not as tight fitting as the original? I think I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on them. I just throw the body on and she's ready to rock and roll. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I know it wasn't one of my most exciting ones, but even if it just a little tidbit of information in there helped you at all, that's all that matters. I've got some plans for this thing actually, so before I go ahead and throw the body back on it with those 20 screws, I think I'm gonna fashion me some stuff. Wanna know what? Maybe next video. Whatever you're doing, guys, keep on RCing, keep on keeping on. Ciao for now.